So this question is a pretty tricky one. Now, when you go through the answer choices, you would find that getting to the right answer choice might not prove that much of a hassle, but understanding why the wrong answer choices are being eliminated could prove to be a hassle. And if you look up this question in online forums, you unfortunately would not find proper explanations as to why these answer choices have been eliminated, and there are some misleading explanations as well. So I would suggest caution when you go through certain explanations given online. So let's try to understand how this question is constructed, because this question really requires a construction-based attack to deal with these answer choices. So it says making things difficult has been this inactivity lately, if not paralysis, which has provided something. Now, one misleading explanation that I found online was that they say that this which is problematic, which refers back to paralysis, but that should not be an issue because the meaning is not impacted in any way, because this word paralysis has just been used to convey an exaggerated form of the market inactivity. So saying that this paralysis has provided little in the way of some pricing is not going to actually impact the meaning. So that's a very misleading explanation. So what's actually happening here is that we are dealing with what is called an inverted construction. And there have been certain questions in which GMAT has tested this. One among them is a question which says among the emotions on display was anger. Now, test takers often make mistakes in this because when they see among the emotions, the immediate assumption is that the subject here is plural, so the verb here has to be plural as well. But this construction is perfectly fine because, as I said before, this is an inverted construction and the real sentence is anger was one among the emotions. So that's what happens in an inverted construction. The main subject is written after the verb. The anger is the subject and the was is the verb. So you see, that's exactly what is going on in this sentence as well. Making things difficult has been this inactivity. So if you reconstruct this, the sentence would become this inactivity has been making things difficult. So you see, this construction is perfectly fine. So the sentence works in the way it is, even if it's constructed in inverted form. But the main problem is with the usage of this adverb lately. Because one use case for this inverted construction is the usage of negative adverbs. For example, words like seldom, rarely, hardly, barely, all of these are negative adverbs because we say something like I seldom see such beautiful sights. So this can be perfectly rewritten as seldom do I see such beautiful sights. So as you can see, the placement of the verb and the subject has been inverted, and that's what the concept of an inverted construction is. So as I said before, only in the use cases of these negative adverbs can you actually use such an inverted construction. Now, there are other use cases as well, but this is definitely not the adverb with which we can use inverted construction. And even if we can use this, the adverb has to be placed at the beginning of the clause and not at the end of it, because that's what the inverted construction permits. And this is the real reason why A should not be taken into consideration. Now let's look at answer option B. B is something that has a completely invalid construction because if you notice, the subject here is making things difficult, which is written in the gerund form. Please remember that the gerund is an ing form used as a noun. So we say this noun and then we follow that with noun with this pronoun, there is inactivity. And we have this, if not paralysis, but we can read around this because it's enclosed within commas. So if you notice, we have one clause here. This is an independent clause. There is inactivity and it has provided this is also an independent clause. So we can see that this construction is what is a comma splice because there are two independent clauses connected by a comma, and for this reason B goes off. Now again, if you look at the construction of answer choice C, it says making things difficult, general market inactivity. So you have a gerund and you have this noun phrase, and as you can see, this making things difficult and general market inactivity is not separated by any comma here. So this construction is totally invalid. C goes off. And now in D, the making things difficult is no longer a gerund because we can see that after this construction we have a comma, in which case this becomes a present participle modifier. So making things difficult lately, and this modifier would now refer to the subject general market inactivity, and general market inactivity has provided something something something. So this clause construction is perfectly fine. We can hold on to D. Now let's look at E. Now we have making things difficult is that this inactivity. So once again there is a construction problem because we're saying making things difficult. So we have a gerund start and then we have this verb is. And after this is verb we have that, and the that signals the start of a that clause. So how do we generally write a that clause? So we can say he admitted that he made a mistake. So you see there is a clause construction after the that, and this would become what is called a that clause. We have a subject and a verb following the that. And now if you see, we have this general market inactivity which is the subject of the that clause, but after this phrase we once again have which provides, which is another relative clause connected to the general market inactivity, or let's say it's connected to the paralysis. So what we can see is that this general market inactivity does not actually have a main verb within the that clause, and that's exactly why this construction fails. E goes off. This leaves us with the right answer choice, D for Delta.